Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a huge one. It's the story of how TikTok, the app for viral dances and funny videos, suddenly became a massive national security threat. It's a wild ride, so let's get into it. So yeah, how did that happen? How did the world's most popular entertainment app end up in the crosshairs of global governments? We're going to zero in on that crucial window between 2024 and 2025, because that's when things really heated up and TikTok went from just a fun app to a full-blown geopolitical issue. And really, it's a story all about data, law, and who holds the power in our digital lives. All right, Section 1, a national security threat. Let's unpack the core of this whole conflict. So where did all this anxiety come from? Well, it all boiled down to one thing, really. The connection between the TikTok app that's on your phone and its parent company, ByteDance, which, and this is the key part, is based in China. Okay, so let's break this down. On one hand, you've got TikTok, this global powerhouse, just vacuuming up user data from all over the world. But on the other hand, you have its parent company, ByteDance. And since they're based in China, they have to follow Chinese law. And that right there was the massive sticking point for governments in the US and Europe. It created this huge question mark. Where's all our data actually going? And more importantly, who could get their hands on it? So next up, we're following the data. What was the actual evidence here? Because, this wasn't just some wild theory. The whole debate really hinged on two key things. First, the kind of data TikTok was collecting, and second, the specific laws in China that might apply to that data. And look, we are talking about way more than just which cat videos you like. I mean, think about it. TikTok was collecting incredibly sensitive stuff. Your exact GPS location, unique identifiers for your phone, your browsing history, even subtle things about how you interact with the app. When you put all that together, it creates this incredibly detailed digital picture of who you are. Okay, so that's the data. Now for the legal side of things. This is where China's cybersecurity law comes into play. And this was the real smoking gun for critics. The fear was that this law could basically force a company like ByteDance to turn over user data to the Chinese government if they asked for it. And that was the big risk, right? The idea that all this sensitive data from American and European users could end up in the hands of a foreign government. So let's trace the journey of your data, just to make it super clear. It starts with you, right? On your phone, in the US or Europe. Then, that information gets sent to TikTok's servers. But here's the crucial final step. That data then becomes subject to the laws that govern its parent company, ByteDance, back in China. And it was exactly this journey, this leap across legal jurisdictions, that had lawmakers so incredibly worried. All right, Section 3, the global crackdown. Because with these risks on the table, governments weren't just going to sit on their hands. Oh no, they started to act. And what started as a concern quickly blew up into a massive, coordinated global reaction. And this timeline really shows how the pressure just kept ramping up from all sides. In 2024, you've got the US dropping this huge bill aimed at forcing a sale. At the same time, the EU starts poking around with its own investigations. Fast forward to 2025, and boom, Europe hits TikTok with big fines for breaking privacy rules, right as the whole debate in the US is about to explode. It was like a classic pincer movement, closing in on the company. And you know what? It wasn't just politicians making noise. The public was right there with them. This research from the time is pretty telling. A huge majority of Americans, we're talking 64%, saw the app as a security threat. And even more people, 72%, were seriously concerned about their data privacy on TikTok. So this was definitely on people's minds. Okay, so on to our fourth section, a US solution. At this point, TikTok and ByteDance were really backed into a corner. They were staring down the barrel of a potential ban in their biggest market. Public opinion was against them. They needed a way out, and they needed one fast. And the demand from the White House couldn't have been clearer. I mean, look at this quote. This wasn't a suggestion to just, tweak a few privacy settings. No, this was a fundamental demand to change who owned and controlled the app. The ultimatum was brutally simple. Sell it or we'll ban it. So what happened? Well, in late 2025, a deal was finally hammered out. A brand new US-based company was created, with American partners like Oracle getting involved. The whole point of this new setup was to keep US user data right here inside the US and put a US company in charge of overseeing it. It was designed to basically cut that direct line of control going back to ByteDance in China. And finally, let's talk about the new rules of tech. Because this whole thing was never just about TikTok. The way this all went down set a massive precedent for the entire tech world, and it completely changed how countries think about data. And the ripple effects were huge. I mean, look at this. On the legal side, data protection rules suddenly got a lot more teeth. Culturally, it kicked off this huge, messy debate about free speech versus national security. And if you're a business, it showed just how big the reputational risks are, and it made every global company have to seriously rethink how they're set up. So, what are the big lessons we all learned from this? Well, first, you absolutely have to build data privacy in from the start. It can't be some afterthought. Second, we now know for sure that governments see data access as a national security issue, full stop. Third, if you're a global tech company, transparency is everything. And maybe the biggest lesson of all, even a harmless app for fun videos can have enormous political and social ripple effects. Which leaves us with one last really big question to chew on. In a world this connected, where our data is constantly flying across borders and through different legal systems, who actually owns and controls your digital footprint? The whole TikTok saga didn't give us a simple answer, but boy, did it make that question impossible to ignore.